All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider post-game show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. Tennessee defeats number 20 Illinois by a score of 86-79 right here in Knoxville. It's actually the Vols' first ranked win of the season, despite a couple along the way, but their first true ranked win of the season. Ryan, this was a thrilling game to go through, but it really had its ebbs and flows. Tennessee burst out of the gate to start the first half. Little bit of a cold stretch there to end the first half, but then they really sort of were able to sustain a lead, grab a lead, and then keep Illinois at arm's distance there in the second half. What did you think about this game just from overall perspective?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of it. And Tennessee, I think, scored 16 points. I think it was 19 points before the first media timeout, which was a good 6 minutes into the game, not just 4. And then the last 8 and change of the first half, they scored 4 points. And it felt like that was continuing early in the second half. Tennessee took some bad shots early. Illinois pushed its lead up a little bit. Then a big stretch, hook and hold on Illinois. Tennessee got some free throws. And then in Dalton Connect, again, he came in and, saved Tennessee. But in a night where in a stretch they were struggling to get shots to go, he scores, it was a 10-0 Tennessee run where he scored 8 of them. He scores 10 of Tennessee's first 13 points in the second half. He got going, and it felt like it just sparked everything. It calmed down everything for Tennessee. And you said it well from there. It wasn't Illinois went away by any means. It wasn't that it was easy from that point on. But Tennessee was kind of able to keep the Fighting Illini at an arm's length the rest of the way.
Yeah, they kind of managed that second half lead, and they were able to stop a big run from happening. And that's sort of one of the most impressive parts I come away with from this game is just that Illinois wasn't able to make that big run. And I know they've been a team on the road here a lot in the last week or so, but they've also got a guy named Terrence Shannon Jr., right, who is a phenomenal scorer from the guard position. Tennessee really held him in check. I believe only 5 for 16 from the floor. He did make 11 of 11 free throws, which is, hey, what good players are going to do. But I thought they really were able to hold him in check, and that's one of the things that gave Tennessee kind of that spark defensively to then set up an offensive run.
100%. I think it's almost kind of twofold, too. He ended up getting 21, 22 points. I didn't think he was quite that effective. I think he scored 9 points in the last 2 minutes. It wasn't like Tennessee wasn't trying by any means. Again, they hadn't ended the game, but defenses played a little bit differently. He got 3 baskets in. And then Marcus Domask, who's Illinois' second leading scorer, couldn't get anything going today. I think those two guys combined to shoot something like 6 of 35, somewhere in that range. Neither of them did much of anything. So Tennessee's defense, again, I talked about Dalton Connect sparking things on the offensive end. I thought what Jemai Mashak and Zakai Ziegler did to set the tone on the defensive end was just as big, especially for Mashak, who played just 3 minutes in the first half, came up big 12 minutes in the second half, and I thought did a great job guarding Shannon and also got some nitty-gritty buckets kind of around the rim and at the free throw line, too.
Yeah, and Rick Barnes was really complimentary of Jemai Mashak, and to me sounded really encouraged just by the way that he's playing. He talked about quite a lot, and I'm not gonna get these quotes back perfectly or anything, so correct me here when I'm wrong, but Rick Barnes kept talking about how everybody's got a role in the team, but what Jemai's doing in his role is especially important, and that makes him a weapon on the court. And this is also a guy that's changed roles quite frequently during his time at Tennessee. So I think that really just shows how mature and how much of a veteran player that he is. But Tennessee certainly needed him in the second half today, and they got him.
Yeah, it was big, and he's one of the guys that was struggling for this Tennessee team coming into this game. Not that he'd been horrible, but there had been some figuring out the role, and Tennessee asking him to do some different things game in and game out with some of the injuries they've had early this season. So it was good to see him get going, and he talked about kind of what I've talked about on our podcast, Jemai Mashak, that is, of we got a lot of getting better to do, and we got a lot of pieces that have been out, and we're still kind of figuring things out, and there's a lot of room for improvement with this team, which I agree, and I think is why there's so much excitement about this Tennessee basketball team.
Jemai Mashak, I think you can credit maybe some of those Wii Sports games back in the day. What was that? Do you remember the exact video game?
Nope.
He played with his brothers. I don't know. We have it up on RockyTopInsider.com. All right, who else?
Yeah, maybe Wii Bowling might have been.
Yeah, that might have been it. Yeah. Who else stood out to you here tonight? You got a couple to pick from.
Well,
I want to say, Josiah Jordan. Who else?
Well, Tennessee had a really balanced performance today, which goes to your point about being able to talk about a lot of guys. Tennessee only played 8. None of the 4 freshmen played. 5 of those guys scored in double figures. I liked what Santiago Vescovi and Zakai Ziegler gave Tennessee. And you talk about Tennessee struggling in Maui, struggling with some early season losses, and the big thing you'd point to was those 2 preseason All-SEC guys in Tennessee's backcourt not playing great. I thought Santiago Vescovi was fantastic tonight, did so many little things well, and then Zakai Ziegler kind of talked about it with Jemai Mashak, but he continues to do what he does so well and setting the tone with his defensive energy. Those 2 guys, I think, combined for 7 assists, no turnovers tonight, and they just gave Tennessee what they needed. And I think that's, again, what's so exciting is Tennessee doesn't need those guys to score like they needed them to score last year. They have more options on the offensive end. They need those guys to make consistent winning plays, play well on both ends, do the little things well. That's what Santiago Vescovi, I think, doesn't get nearly enough credit for from the large portion of Tennessee's fan base. And Zakai Ziegler, I think, gets more credit for it because what he does on the defensive end with that tenacity it's hard to miss if you're watching a basketball game.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments, especially in the second half of the game, where Santiago Vescovi looked like Luka Doncic out there. Just all sorts of crazy plays on the floor. And I almost tweeted that out from the RTI Twitter account, but I knew that the few people who knew that I was tweeting would call me out for it, so I held back. But I also knew that I was going to say it right here on the postgame
You were
show
saying
as
it in the postgame. You said it in our text thread. I think you said it on your own tweets.
I did.
I felt like the one he had down here was maybe a little more Magic Johnson. I kept on thinking of that clip from the Dream Team documentary, and you might not know what I'm talking about. But Magic Johnson's talking about the inter squad scrimmage that is infamous and how famous. And he goes, and I came down and go, ee, ee. I always laugh at that clip. Santiago Vescovi had one of those in that great stretch of Tennessee in the second half where they kind of opened up the lead.
It was. Ryan, this was an important win for Tennessee. Obviously, you go to Maui and you get a win against Syracuse there, and you lose some hard-fought games to both Kansas and Purdue. Tennessee comes back to the states, to the continental states, I should say, then lose against North Carolina on their road as well. This was a big game for Tennessee to come back, regroup. It was a rowdy Thompson-Boling Arena here, packed stadium, sold-out stadium or arena. But I think that this was just a really important win to not just continue to show that you can be in those games, but to also show that, hey, we can win those games.
Yeah, and, the Michigan State game obviously doesn't count. It's an exhibition, and the Wisconsin game was the second game of the year, so it feels like a long time ago in a lot of ways. So, no, that was big, and you got to win games like this on your home court. I mean, Illinois is a really good team, but so is Tennessee, and the best Rick Barnes teams at Tennessee have very rarely lost at Thompson-Boling Arena. They need to continue to do that. And now the schedule does lighten up. They get North Carolina State next weekend in San Antonio, which won't be a layover, but they're not as good as some of those other teams we were just talking about. And I think 3 lesser opponents. So it's going to be, I think you're going to see Tennessee reel off some wins here in inter-SEC play on a winning streak. I'm sure we'll talk about it more at length, but I think it'll be big for Tennessee to get a guy like Freddie DeLeon and some of those freshmen involved in this final stretch of December and into early January before conference play starts in the 6th.
Any other final takeaways from the game here today?
No, I think we fit it all.
Tennessee defeats number 20 Illinois by a score of 86-79 right here in Thompson-Boling Arena at the Food City Center. This is Ryan Schumpert. I'm Rick Butler. We got some more post-game coverage to get to back behind us. But, of course, stay tuned to Rocky Top Insider on all social media platforms as we continue to work through our way. We got a lot of football and basketball coming up, so don't miss any of it. Thank you so much for listening today. This has been the Rocky Top Insider post-game show with Ryan and Rick.